Alright guys, welcome back. Alright, so today we're going to be going ahead and cracking open the transmission, inspecting the gears, seeing how everything looks in there, see what we need to replace, see what we should upgrade. I've already ordered the parts I'm going to be putting into it. I got the carbon Synchro blocker rings and the bronze fork pads. And I also plan on upgrading to a billet front cover from Tick with the bunks and sprayers, and then their high flow pump. I'm also going to be replacing the rear main seal because that's been slightly leaking, so I'm going to go ahead and do that while I have this out, and also probably replace anything that might press, like these bolts are a little rusty, and clean this up. Probably try to get it coated or something, but just keep it from getting rusty and getting any worse than it already is. And then also inspect, see if there's any damage to the inside. So I'm gonna go ahead and start getting all my tools ready to go, and then we can go from there. Okay, alright, so first things first, I'm actually gonna go ahead and loosen all these bolts on the front cover. So when I put the transmission upright on this little table here, the bolts are already off and I don't have to worry about having to lift it up without the tail housing on to get it upright into the table. Because I don't have one of those fancy transmission holders, little rotating tool, so this table is going to be my best bet. I'm going to go ahead, get these bolts off, and then we're going to get the transmission upright and go from there. Alright, so you got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I'm assuming they're all 50mm bolts on the front. Okay, so brake bar, should get them nice and loose. You can probably use an impact, but I ended up just going with the brake large so I can see if they'll break loose without having to do any like exertion on the bolts. They're all nice and loose now. Okay, now I'm gonna get my impact here. Just to buzz these bolts off. So I'll probably leave these two here just so that it supports the casing against this while I'm taking it off. So it doesn't look too bad as far as like trying to get in there. So I'll just give a little support. But these two, just to kind of like hold it against it so I can get it back upright, should be good to go, and still be able to get those bolts out once I get ready to throw it in there. So, get myself lined up. Look down here, a little off. There we go. Alright, so we're nice and upright again. So I can easily still access these bolts like over here. Alright. 50mm ratchet wrench. Should, oh wow, actually doesn't reach it. So let me get this one. That's for sure. Not really that one, unfortunately. Actually, there we go. The other one should be much easier because I'm able to get in there with the wrench. Alright, so I got that bolt out. I just gotta get this last one. This one I can easily hit with this wrench. There we go. Okay. Next thing you're gonna do, you're gonna remove these plates where the shifter will go. These are not 15s, so 13mm bolt. I'm gonna use a 13mm deep socket. Get in there, support the transmission, and they're actually pretty light. They're not in there that tight. Definitely gonna replace these bolts so they're kind of rusty. those off to the side and break off these lower ones. Also 13mm bolts. Two of one kind and two of another kind. I don't see why there would be a difference. Alright, so at the top, I don't have a smaller mallet, so I'm just gonna alright. Got that cover off. I'm most likely gonna go and try to get this recoated. I think it's powder coating. So I'm just gonna remove this screw here in the middle and go get this powder coated. So I have 15mm bolts on the tail housing. Go ahead and break those loose first. And once they're loose, go from there. Alright, crack that one. Crack that one. Now on this side, I'm gonna grab the camera real quick once they're broken loose. You'll see there's a tag on this side that has your identification information for the transmission, so you know which one you have. Okay. Crack that one loose. Alright, so over here, like I was talking about, we're gonna have a little plate that has the information for the transmission. So mine, I don't know if you can make it out. So it says TUET11940C, and it's also on this sticker up here. I should tell you that, tell you what style or brand Tremec transmission it is. Getting cut up against the tail housing. Okay. Alright. Total of 8 bolts. Alright. Set this off to the side. There we go. Crack that loose. And as far as I know, this cover doesn't have a specific orientation. So it can go either way, up or down. But for my case, I can see, looking at it, there's a number printed on it. If I'm looking at a transmission like this, the number is printed like that, so I should be able to put it back the way it came off. Alright, so I didn't end up showing it, because I wanted to see how difficult it was to try to break loose before I start recording, wasting battery. But you have 2 points where you can lift off of. There's this side right here, it's on the upper left side. Then there's this side back here. This side was really jammed in there. You can kind of see it. Let's start bending the casing a little bit, kind of like cracking pieces off of it. So that wasn't working very well. This side I was able to get enough of a slit to where I could slide it up. And I took one of these razor blades and I stuck it in between right there, like that. And I took a metal hammer and then smacked it in there to use this razor blade to break loose the gasket on there. And then I just worked my way around. And then so I didn't accidentally smack it all the way through, I took some vice grips and put it on this kind of slanting where I had to tighten it by hand to grip on the edge of the razor blade right there. So that as I'm dragging it along, I use the vice grips to keep it from going all the way in and then the razor blade falling inside of there by accident. So that worked pretty good. You could also do one at a time, see if you have 2 of these. You put one razor blade in, smack that in, and then take your second razor blade. You should have enough gap, smack that in. This one should be loose so you can take it out and then just work your way around. This stud there's 2 guide pins. There's one right here and one right here. I sprayed this one with the PV blaster. This one I didn't get around to, but by the time I got to it, this cracked up, so I didn't really need to spray it down. But I will sand it down smooth so that way when I put it back on, I won't have any issues. So it's broken loose. I can lift it up a little bit. So currently I'm getting these pins out. See, it's still retained on there, so I didn't drop it or anything like that. Looks good. From what I can tell, pin's probably fine. I just have to finish hammering it out the rest of the way so I can reinstall it through the front. Now I should be able to get in here and pry this up. There we go. And just slide it over the top. Like so. You got your reverse gear idler. You can see it on the shaft of the tail housing. I'm gonna go ahead and set this down right here real quick. So I didn't realize the camera was shaking that whole time, so I apologize for that. We'll try to see if we can find something else to set the camera on top of. Okay, hopefully that'll be a lot better. I don't know if the fan's gonna make too much noise and muffle me out, but hopefully not. Okay, looking at this, overall, everything looks pretty good. I don't see any significant amount of wear on anything, just from visual inspection right now. Tail shaft end looks good. I believe this is reverse gear. Reverse gear. Actually, there's a little fragment right there. I don't know if you can tell. But overall, the gear itself, the gear looks fine. Just little bits and pieces here where it looks like it kind of was riding a little bit, but overall everything else looks pretty good. Driven gear looks fine. Looking in there, everything else looks pretty good too. Okay, we're gonna start off with the main shaft. So we have a snap ring right here. Then we have this little gear teeth right here, and then another snap ring, some bearings, and then this gear should just pop right off. So I'm gonna go ahead and set that up, and then we can go from there. Go ahead up and over, then set it right down. And as you take stuff off, make sure you put it in sequence as it's coming out. And then you have the speedo gear right here. Up and over. Set it right down. And you have another snap ring. Up and over. Set it down. And you have a few bearings here. And while you're doing this, you want to pay close attention to where certain things sit. So I'll show you here real quick. On this one, so you have this set of roller bearings right here, but if I move it, you can kind of see this piece right here isn't part of it. It's like basically a sleeve. So if I move it up and over, if I can get it with one hand, so you have this spacer right here, this spacer here, the bearing, and another spacing underneath. So you want to make sure this comes out as one whole piece. And then you have this retaining ball here. I'm gonna have to take this off. Yeah, I'm gonna have to set the camera down so I can get this retaining ball out. So this ball, I'm probably going to end up putting in a Ziploc bag. So that way I don't end up losing it. For now, I'm just gonna put it inside of this gear so it doesn't roll off the box and get lost. Now from here, grab the bearing, and 2 little sleeves, and then slide it up and over, just like that. And you can also see on the side, they go a certain way. These sleeves aren't the size bearing, but they sit on the top and bottom of it. And then set it down the way it came out. Try to keep the orientation as best as possible. Next thing, we have another snap ring. Oh, let's miss that. This one's facing this way. I'm going to take this and rotate this to a position that's easily accessible. Get your pliers ready. Slide it out of there. Up and over. And then set it right down. Next step, you have this spacer here. Try to see if I can pry it off. Oh, there we go. Got this big washer spacer type deal, and that was the top of the gear. I'm gonna set that down right here, and then this should just come right off, like so. When you're pulling the gears off, there's going to be bearings underneath, so lift the gear up, look underneath, and you're going to see the bearings. Right underneath that. So I slowly lift this up. If you can, grab the bearings too, and then pull it up with the bearings. Slide it up and over, and then you have your needle bearings underneath, just like that. Inspect them. And they all look pretty good. Put it back into the gear. Keep it on the gear. Set this down. Keep it nice and organized. Same orientation as it comes out. Alright, next step is going to be a small little snapping right here. The kind with the 2 little holes inside. So if you haven't already seen, this gasket, there's a little bit of metal flakes there. Nothing too crazy. I don't see any big chunks. There's a little bit of metal shavings right up here on this gear. And then this looks a little blue. I don't know what it's supposed to look like factory. So this looks blue. There's a chip in the gear right here that I can see. And then looking all around it, overall the rest of it looks not too bad. That's literally the only thing I can see is the tip of the gear right there has a little chip. Nothing too crazy. So I'm gonna go ahead, stop right here, change the camera, or change the battery in this camera, and then come back and go from there. Okay, I'm back. Alright, so I got my snap ring pliers. So this should go right in there, just like so. I should be able to take those off. I might have to swip the heads. Actually, not even tighten. I have to tighten these. They're loose for some reason. I'm gonna go ahead, get an Allen key, tighten this up, and then go ahead, take this snap ring off, and then go from there. Okay, got it tightened down. So go ahead, get your snap ring pliers in there. I don't know if I'll be able to do this one-handed. Yeah, it's snapping off. I'm gonna set the camera down and try to get this. Okay, change the tips. They kept slipping off, so hopefully this makes a difference. So that I can actually grab the snap ring. So far, looking good. Alright. Off like a charm. So make sure you use the right size tips. Set that down. This has snap ring on top of it. Loosen that up and take it off, just like that. up and over and off, just like so. This snap ring, I just took off was on top of this. It's part of the Synchro. So this goes right on top of that. So I'm gonna set this down right here. And then this kind of fell apart when I took out these. You can see the plastic's actually kind of melted. Has a slight groove on it. So I might have to replace these. It looks a little burned on this side. So that I might have to actually buy and replace those. I'm also going to be replacing these fork pads. So I can replace that. Took that off. This, I don't believe, comes right off. I think you have to take this off with the puller. So that's good from there. Next thing, I still have this set up to replace this gear or pull that gear off of there. So I'm gonna go ahead, get my jaw puller, set it up, and then we can go from there and get that gear off. First thing you have here on the counter shaft, I don't know if you can tell because of the lighting, but you have this snap ring right here. So you can have some snap ring pliers. And you'll see, I don't know if you can tell in there, but it's curved in a way where it goes to the inside. So we go ahead, let's get in here, and then just pry this snap ring off very carefully. And then come over here and set it down. And then we're just gonna go like that, start removing things. See a little bit of metal flakes right here. Nothing too bad. Okay, so I got this 3-jaw puller. I put it on the low setting. I also have this 6mm 3/8 drive socket. It fits perfectly on the end of that, and it fits perfectly on the inside of this counter shaft without contacting anything inside of it. So I should be able to crank on this gear and pull it off. Hopefully pull it off without causing any damage to it. But I might end up increasing the length of these just so that way I can get more of a straight on there, because right now it's kind of like grabbing on the teeth and I don't want it to do that. So I might end up taking this off and then resetting it back to the original length that I was at, so that it's a little bit better grabbing around the gear. Actually, I think I'm gonna swap this over to a 2-gear puller setup. Alright, so I'm recording this on my phone because the camera battery, not the camera battery, but the SD card on the GoPro is full. So I tried doing this a whole bunch of different ways, but this kept drifting off. It was really sketchy. This was also drifting off, but it was a little bit better just mainly because I was able to use the tip of this to get in there. And even then, you can see on there, it shredded a lot of the tip into the socket. And this thing's still a little hot right now. It was also cutting a groove into the socket from there. So I'm gonna have to try to get in there and get all the little metallic shards out of there, clean it thoroughly, which will be fine because I'm gonna have everything out. So overall, it doesn't look too bad. But getting this gear out was a pain. It was really sketchy. I ended up having to use the big impact set on setting 3, and I didn't have any other sockets, so I had to use the chrome sockets, which is always sketchy. Never want to do it, but since I was just slowly working my way through this, I had to make sure I had my hand on it, holding onto it tightly to make sure these teeth didn't let go of the gear. And even then, I might have accidentally damaged the gear trying to pull it out. So I'll see that right now, looking underneath it. I mean, nothing too noticeable. I would say the gear's fine. Maybe a few like surface like defects here and there, but other than that, not too bad. So go ahead. So all of this was from there. So let me move this out of the way, keep this organized. So you have that retaining clip, this gear right here. Let's check it up real quick. So from here, you would go ahead and pull this gear out. and then you'll be able to take all these other gears out. You can't really take this gear out with this in the way, and you can't get this out. So this one's gonna be the fun one, figuring out how to take that off. So I'm gonna go ahead and take off what I can from here, and then try to set myself up to get this off. This out shaft is a lot longer than the regular Magnum, so getting teeth all the way down here, that's gonna be the tricky part. And then finding somewhere to grab, which I'm assuming will be down here on these bottom. And it should be a little bit easier to get a little bit better grab from there. Hopefully I have enough to reach down to it, but I won't know until I start doing it. So I'm gonna go ahead, take all the footage off the GoPro, put it on my computer, dig it out there so that way I can get recording on the GoPro again. But over here, I got a lot of progress done, so it's looking good so far. Nothing too noticeably damaged, at least. So go ahead and go from there. Alright guys, we're back. So next day here, I got a few tools in for today to better improve on this. So I have this 3/16 roll pin punch, and it fits perfectly. And I tested it out on this to see if it fit perfectly. It looks like it'll fit perfectly on this side too. So that's gonna be way better than trying to use those punches which aren't the right size, and I won't accidentally damage it or get the pin stuck in there. I also got a second set puller, which came a lot more arms and extensions, which I have set up here. So I'm still using the base from the Harbor Freight puller set, which is a little bit wider and thicker, so I would trust this one a little bit better. I have the arms kind of interconnected. These are actual extensions. This will connect to that. The only sketchy part is I have these two nuts connecting these two parts together, because this, especially on the XL, it's a really long portion all the way to the output shaft. So right here, I'm trying to get the gear portion of the Synchro off, because it didn't come off with it. It's kind of on there. The advantage, or at least the good part here, is it's not pressed on there very tightly. It's just kind of pressed on. That wasn't easily, or at least safely possible to just pry it off with the pry bar. I tried seeing if it would like give way a little bit with the pry bar, but it was still a little tight in there, so I didn't want to damage it. So I have this set up here, and actually with this one, since it's not pressed on there tightly, I can actually do this one by hand. I got it partly way off, so you can kind of see where the gears are exposed underneath. So that's right where it was sitting, and it's kind of sitting a little bit off because the, what is that, fifth? I think that's fifth. So fifth driven gear was in the way of getting those teeth, or those I guess like claws, all the way on. So you can see on there it's slightly off, but it's perfectly fine because I was able to pull it up slightly enough. And then just get a couple more turns, I should be able to get the Synchro gear out, and then try to find a way to make this work for the gears underneath. I might have to get more extendable arms for this, and then go from there. I might not be able to reach down that far enough to get that the sixth or fifth, I think it's fifth driven gear off. So for now this works for getting the Synchro gear off, but I might have to make up some more weird adjustments for this to try to make it work for other things. So for now, real quick, we go ahead, finish up getting the Synchro gear off, and then we're gonna figure out how to get the next gear from there off. Just like that. Get the Synchro hub out of there. And then you'll notice a little plastic piece underneath it. Just make sure you don't lose that. So looking at the Synchro over here. Whoop, slips. So you can kind of tell if the camera would focus. So you kind of see faintly there is a good amount of wear on the teeth of the Synchro on this side. In this case, with the reverse, since you only use one side, you can most definitely just flip this over and use Synchro on the opposite side. So that way you don't have to replace the whole thing. Especially with this one, since this side's burnt up, I can definitely still reuse this whole Synchro. Just flip it upside down, use the fresh side. So you can kind of see here, this side, obviously it's not, there's no other gear on this side for reverse, so it's nice and fresh. There's basically almost this clean. So that's how it's supposed to look. Very sharp point for your Synchros. Whoop. This side, you can see a good amount of wear. It was grinding in reverse a little bit. Probably because from the previous clutch, it wasn't completely disengaging properly from the clutch. So it was grinding in reverse if the RPM was too high. So overall, I can just put this back together. So I had to use both hands to get in there and push in the little keys for the Synchro. So definitely this side's a little burnt up, but fortunately with this one, you can easily just flip it over and use the fresh side and have nice fresh teeth for your reverse gear. You would just have to, you can see on this side, so you have this on here. I would just have to flip this portion of it and then flip these. So the Synchro, the outer portion of the Synchro and these little keys, I would have to flip those. This would have to stay facing up, because you can see on this side it has this plastic trim here as to ride on the gear underneath it, or the spacer underneath it, or this side does not. But you can probably most likely easily, if you can separate this plastic piece from it, flip it over so this side's all fresh. This side you can kind of see it's a little burnt up, nothing too bad. So I'm just gonna set this back on here, where that white mark. No, it's right where that goes. This whole, or the reverse isn't gonna get replaced, but fortunately that side's pretty easy to get to. So if I wanted to, I could easily replace the blocker for reverse without having to take too much stuff apart. So if I really want to, I can always replace that and come back and replace that. But I'm gonna set this back in here. Put that snap ring there, and then we can go from there and try to figure out how to get that gear out, because I don't know how far down I'll be able to reach in there. So I can go ahead and try to see what other extensions I can use for this to make it a little bit longer and reach down to that gear and go from there. Alright, so we're back. So I don't know if I recorded it, probably didn't, but I screwed up and I messed up fifth driven gear trying to pull it off. And so what you're supposed to do, and I missed it because I didn't really think about it, but this, and it's already taken off because I tried to see if it come off, but you have this thrust washer. It's supposed to come right off like so. This looks fine. So thrust washer there, and then you have this split washer that goes right there, and then I used a what's it called? Actually, I didn't say it, but to get the thrust washer off, it's gonna be wedged in there pretty tight. So I just used a razor blade and I fit it onto the side, and then kind of just worked my way around it, and then kind of just wedged it to until it basically came off and I could slide it right out. And then I just took like a pry tool, if I can figure out where it went. This one. Took this tool, wedged it between the split washer, and then you kind of work your way around it. Try to take this off, and then if it's stuck on one side, I just took the hammer and kind of just tapped it lightly with that, with this tool. And you get both sides off. Keep its orientation the same, like so. Boom. And then from there, now you should be able to easily get this gear off, which I screwed up. But I was making a plate over here that I was gonna try to put underneath it, which I probably still can. I was in the process of cutting it, and then the battery died on the Dremel. But This should be able to just kind of slide over like so. Actually, I might just go ahead and try it right now. Actually, I don't know if it'll fit under here. I'll clean this off real quick because it has a lot of little metal shavings still in it, and then I'll try to see if I can slide it in there. So take this, get in there, and it actually fits. Oh, there we go. That fits perfectly right there. So now with that plate, I can safely pull that off without damaging it. So take my super extender puller, make sure all my arms are nice and tight. Loosen that screw, this screw. Okay, so I got this tightened up. I like to get this set up down here. Tighten this by hand so that way there's no slack here. And once these are tightened, I tighten up here to give it more tension on the extension. I have this plate right here ready to go. And I'm gonna make sure it's aligned to where the plate isn't obstructing the fifth gear. So from right here, if I were to turn it, it would get in the way. So I'm gonna have to try to do my best to keep this straight as I'm lifting up, because otherwise it's gonna mess it up. So I'm gonna start off by by using the wrench and just using tension there. And then I might try to find something I can wedge between here. So I had that, but it's not gonna be big enough and it's gonna get in the way. I could just try to cut that edge off, but for now I'm just gonna see if I can do it without having to go that far. Let's get the gear started coming off. Move down. It does look like it's slowly coming up. This is all still straight. I wedged the this little brush here on this side, so now it's stopped right where the plate is. Let's make sure you do this slowly. There's no real rush. You don't want to accidentally damage it while you're trying to do this. The other option is to just take this gear off, move that out of the way, which I could do, assuming that it's alright. So at this point, just to be safe, I'm gonna take fifth gear off, move that out of the way. I don't want to accidentally damage it, trying to take the driven gear off. So yeah, from here, fifth driven gear is about 40% off, but just to be safe, as you can see, fifth moves very easily. Then you just have this snap ring, this washer, and then I can easily remove this gear, and that way I don't have to worry about this plate that I have here contacting this, and I can continue going on. Because even if I didn't have that, this would still rotate and it would hit that gear. So it'd just be safer to do that than try to risk it and accidentally hitting fifth gear. So that's probably what I would recommend here. Is if you don't have something that will keep this from rotating, something that like locks into place here, just take fifth gear off. It'd be better and you don't accidentally damage anything there. So that, take this snap ring off. Like so. Snap ring goes down. And you have this washer here. Oh, it's kind of stuck on there, but looks good. Set that down. Then you have your fifth gear. I'm just gonna spin it around as you rotate it. But also as you lift it up, you are going to have your needle bearings under there. So I want to try to reach in there and grab those as well as I'm spinning it up. So go in there, grab that with it, and then right there, have your needle bearings. And those look good. So stick your needle bearings back on the inside of fifth gear. Make sure you keep it facing upright the way you took it out, and set it right down. And then next you have your setup for your synchro. But at this point, I can easily move this gear and not have to worry about it hitting anything, because it'll be clear of everything else. And it's off. And it's hot. Left quite a groove in there. This is probably really hot. That's not too bad. Base of that, it's fine. This plate did the job. Didn't even need to cut it all the way. That's good. But this driven gear is definitely toast, and that was my bad. So I didn't use that plate initially, so I definitely broke this gear. Actually, I think one of these was broken beforehand. Maybe. I gotta fish some of those pieces out actually, wherever they are. But from here, I just need to take this fork off and get that gear out, and I should be able to get this case off. So this, unfortunately, is toast because the puller damaged it because I didn't use that plate. So if you're gonna try to pull this gear off, you don't have something that can sit flush on the surface of this gear, the driven gear, just don't try it. If you can take something as simple as this, I think this piece of metal was something like, I don't even know, like a couple bucks, and then just cut the shape out of it. So it was about, I think 2/5. So if I had cut this groove out, it would definitely fit more snug around it, and it fit a lot better. As you can see the shape of it, and then you can go right underneath it, and it'll fit right in there, and it won't obstruct the other gear. I took it off just to be safe. But yeah, this one's done. But for organizational sake, this is gonna go here. And I need to make a little bit more room for stuff. So from here, you have this snap ring here, and then remove the synchro with the blockers on both sides. And then that's 6th gear down here. 6 driven gears right here. You don't have to take it off. Take off the casing though, because you can see the outline of it. It's right there, so that's fine there. And then I just need to take this off too. I started hammering it in, but I didn't get all the way done. So go ahead, get those few, and then go from there. Okay, snap rings out. Set this on the side for now. And the next thing, you're gonna get in here, wiggle it. So it doesn't want to come off all as one. So I'm going to take off the blocker rings, and I'm changing these out, so it doesn't really matter the orientation you take them out in. So this is the top, and then these little keys came out as such. These I'm going to try to keep in orientation, so I'm setting that like that. Set that down there. Key there, there, and there. Their corresponding sides. Let's try to find a way to get this off. And then there was this little plastic washer right above it. Set that down in there. So there's a snap ring. That way you guys can follow along. Took this snap ring off, and then I worked this fork off, but these came off, so I just took off the blocker rings, and then there's this little plastic spacer that goes right above it. So I gotta take the snap ring off, set it down, and then hopefully this comes right off without having to use a puller. So I have no idea how I'm gonna get a puller in there. But take that off, and then I should be able to take 6 off, and then go ahead and take this case off. So I'm trying to see if I can get those 2 gears off, and go from there. Alright, so that snap ring was a little bit trickier because of the angle I had to approach it at. Let's see. So yeah, over here, got that snap ring off, but this isn't budging by hand. So I'm not quite sure how I'm supposed to get a puller in there to take the Synchro out. And if I can't take the center portion of the Synchro out, I can't get to 6th gear. I can't get 6th gear out. If I can't get 6th gear out, can't get the casing off. So I'm gonna take a pause here, swap out the batteries on this camera, and then do a little bit more research, try to figure out what I'm gonna have to do to take that off, and then yeah, go from there. All right, so about 1 or 2 days later, trying to figure out how to get the Synchro hub off has been challenged, considering how minimal space there is to try to get in there with a puller tool. And I tried a few different things, try to find a way to get at it. I tried pulling it by hand. There's no way to alleviate, and there's no real way in there to kind of get 2 or 3 like flatheads or something in there to try to like pry it up. So I ended up just mocking up a cardboard cutout of the top of the hub, and then used a sliver on the side of the metal that wedged in there just barely enough underneath it to kind of like grab it. And it worked at first, but then it kind of wasn't working, or at least I used just the plate and it gave me just a little bit. So I had to mock some crazy little contraption up, which is that metal plate and then 2 nuts and then this little cutout I hid, which the initial one was too thin and it was bending. So I had to get one that was 16 gauge, and I have the 16 and the 22 gauge plates together, and it was just enough to finally grab on there and lift it up with the 3-jaw puller. So this is finally off. The contraption works, and it'll work for any Synchro if there's limited space due to the other blocker ring being in the way. And this should work anytime I need to, and it worked like a charm. So I'm glad this worked. I can finally take off 6th gear and then take the case off and then continue on with the disassembly. The battery is about to die on this GoPro, so this took a lot of time of my day just because of the batteries dying and having to cut out, run to the store back and forth to get this to work. But I got this off now. I'm gonna go ahead, get a new battery in this GoPro, but I'm gonna wrap this up for today, and I'm gonna start fresh tomorrow in the morning, and then hopefully get it all completely assembled, and then get my 12-ton press that I bought from at the store, set that up, and then hopefully get all of these, the main shaft and the counter shaft, all of the gears taken off, and then inspect it and make sure everything looks good. So with that, I'll catch you guys in the morning. Alright guys, next day here. So today we're going to be finally taking the case off. All the bolts are still off. All I need to do is finish taking off this portion of the shift rail so I can take this off, and then take off the Synchro hub for 5th, 6th, then remove 6th gear and their blockers, and then should be able to just clear right up once I get in there. I'm probably going to use the same method I did with the tail housing. It's just to take razor blades and then feed it to the side and kind of just hammer it in there to loosen the gasket between the cover plate and the housing, so I can slide it right off, and then we can go from there and inspect the rest of the transmission. Hopefully everything else in there looks good, so let's go ahead and do it. Specialty tool, work like a charm. Just pull off the blockers like so. So 6 gear blockers are off, and I'm just gonna put that on the bottom. Just compacting that out of the way. There we go. 6 gear. which should just pop right off. And it looks like there's bearings in there too. Just make sure those come off with it. Try to get your hand underneath it and pull it all off at once. Slide it right off, and then if I push it, so we have this kind of like angled spacer that came off the bottom. So this was the orientation. The tapered part was on, the bottom, like that. And then we have this plastic spacer in there, and then the needle bearings. Now all goes inside of 6th gear. Goes up like so. Slide that in there, slide that spacer, and then keep this on the underneath, just like that. So that's how you take it out. And set it right down. Alright, so at this point, I have pretty much everything off I need to. I'm probably gonna get some rags, clean up some of that fluid that's right there in that corner so it doesn't spill everywhere. And then I believe all I have to do is just take the shift rail off. I should be able to pull the case off, and then probably put some heat on this so I can take the breather tube off. If I can take off this outer piece, I might do that too. So we'll see how that's gonna come out. Alright, so for this portion of the shift rail, this whole shaft is one piece. Once you punch out the roll pin, you'll be easily able to tell because this will start moving kind of freely. And then you're just going to want to hold this as you're lifting the case up so that you don't accidentally drop this. Alright, so you are most likely probably going to have to heat up around this screw to get it off. I try to see if I can get enough torque on it to loosen it, and I'm just destroying this bit, which is fine because I'd much rather destroy this bit than the screw, because I can easily just still be able to get the screw out. I'm just gonna need another bit. That's fine, no worries there. Alright, I'm gonna try to see if I can find something that tells me exactly how hot I need to put it on, or how long and how hot I have to heat it up to before trying to put it off, and the same thing with this tube, and then we can go from there. Okay, couldn't really find anything specific on how long to really hold the torch there for. So I'm gonna start with 10 seconds and then see if I can get it off. Alright, first one's loose. Now for the second one. And just for the torch I'm using, I have the Mag torch, propane torch. I have it set to halfway. And then hold it there for 10 seconds. And then you'll be able to really easily see the discoloration as you're doing it. Go ahead and raise myself on it. Might have stripped that one actually. Or the bolt, or the... So I'm try a little bit more. Damaged the tip, but hopefully it's sturdy enough to hold. Okay, that worked. Sweet. Those are off. Now I should be able to easily pry up on the case and get these off. So these are probably still gonna be really hot, so you're not gonna want to touch them. I'm gonna go ahead, grab a rag, fold it over a few times, grab these, and then set them off to the side. One and two. Alright, good to go. So I got those out, got that loose, got everything up here ready to go. I'm actually gonna grab 2 rags and try to clean up some of this fluid down here. Pry bar, this actually fits under here, so wedge it a little bit. Actually, oh wow, that worked perfectly. No fuss on that side. No fuss on this side. Still has, looks like good. Oh, it's seeping. It's seeping fluid from each side. So I'm actually gonna try to pack this in here all around real quick. So that was actually pretty easy. Just needed to pry these back corners a little bit. So you have 2 slots that you can use. They're both near the bottom of the transmission. So I've used a pry bar, just wedged it on one side and then just lightly tapped it. And the whole case came off actually pretty easily. There's one more bolt down here you want to take off. So this, it's a 19. Alright, take this, set it off to the side, take a magnet, you take this spring, whoop, this spring and this roller out, and I made a mistake of not looking to see which way it came out, so I'm going to have to look that up before putting it back in there. But it should be pretty obvious just based off of the direction. If you can't see. So you have these bolts came out, so you have the bolt for the bottom of the shift rail and the cover. And you have this spring and this little pin on the inside. I'm assuming that this goes like that, so the roller goes straight in just like that. But I didn't have a chance to see how it came out because it just fell out. So I'll have to look that up before putting it back in. Other than that, I'm trying to clean up this mess of fluid that's still draining everywhere. Alright, so next step now, I'm gonna go ahead and lift this up. I'm gonna hold on to this because it's gonna come off when I try to lift it up. And then just try to carefully lift up without hitting anything. Like so. Hitting something. set it right down. This came out. The roll pin came in with it, so I'm gonna set it down. Set it down right here for the time being. Okay, and with that, we have the case off. Came out fairly well. I put the like the shift rail guide over there. Wait, no, I put it right here, and set this down right next to it. So looking at it now, everything looks fairly good. I don't really see any noticeable damages. Actually, you can't see. So looking at it from here, everything looks fairly well. Don't see anything noticeable, anything damaged. So for this assembly on the side, you're gonna lift all the way up. For this, you're gonna lift all the way up, and then once you have it high enough, you should be able to lift up, move it out of the way, grab this, wiggle it out, and set it off to the side. For now, I'm just gonna put that right here. And then after that, you should be fairly easy to lift up the whole main shaft and the shift rail assembly and be able to get the counter shaft off. Once you have that off, you can take off the main shaft and the shift rail and then separate those. Well, didn't go as planned. I came off before I can get anything else off, so for now I'm just going to set this down right here, and I'm actually going to move some of this stuff over completely on there. Now I just need to lift up the shift rail, lift this up. Let me lift this up and out of the way, and boom, counter shaft is removed. Move some of this stuff over. I'm kind of running out of space, so it probably would be best to have like a full table. But for now, this should be fine. Okay, I've definitely run out of space trying to do this, which kind of sucks. So up and out. Yeah, don't do what I did. Get yourself a big table to put everything down on. I ran out of space, and I was kind of expecting it, but figured I'd try to work with what I have. But I'm probably gonna go out, get a table, and have everything laid out perfectly nice and ready to reassemble. This should be able to just come right off now, like that. But I don't have anywhere to put it, so I'm just gonna leave it there for now. Well, I accidentally dropped the camera, so hopefully the footage is still good. I guess we'll see. So go ahead, I'm gonna go get a table so I can properly organize this all up, because I did run out of room. I was anticipating it, but I was hoping I would still have enough room to fit stuff. But I got it for the most part, pretty much all this assembled. Next step is gonna be inspecting every single thing, checking for dings, nicks, scorch marks, anything that might have gotten burned or anything that might have gotten warped. So I'm gonna check every single thing and make sure everything looks good. And once I'm done with that, whatever needs to be replaced, we'll replace. I may or may not still get these all crowd treated. It'll depend on what my timeline looks like. And also replacing the pads on each one of the forks, and then replacing the rear main seal because that one was leaking earlier. After that, everything else should be good. Clean up the case, clean up the front cover, get everything all cleaned up, nice and looking good, and then put it all back together and be able to throw it back in and get her back on the road. So for that, I'm gonna end the video off here. Next step is definitely gonna be the inspection and the overall disassembly of the rest of this thing. And with that, thank you guys for watching. Stay tuned for the next video where we finally get this all nice and built for the project thing. I'll catch you guys on the next one.